Institute of America to attend one of their entrepreneurship forums at the Johnson School of Business. Brought a cohort, big old bus of CIA chef entrepreneurs to go and present and meet and mingle at this business school entrepreneurship forum. And I was disappointed. I was disappointed in the looks in the eyes of these MBA and business people who were essentially looking down at these restaurant entrepreneurs and these future chefs thinking, like, these small time people, like what? You're not going to build the next unicorn. Like, why are we paying attention to you? And it made me incredibly sad because that is just so short-sighted, because the restaurant industry itself, everybody's got to eat. Not everybody's got to have a cell phone, but everybody's got to eat. And if, just type it into the chat, how big do you think the food and beverage restaurant industry is in the United States? Just like in 1 year, what's the size of this market? Just type it in there. Curious what you guys think this actually is. Throw out a number. Humor me, right? Nobody's typing. 500 billion, 200 billion. Okay. In 2020, right, when we were hit with the pandemic, it was just under $1 trillion. Like, $1 trillion, right? Like, that's a lot. Sounds like a lot. How big do you think the cell phone industry was in 2020? Bigger, smaller? 1 trillion? 700 billion, right? $300 billion bigger. Restaurants, people gotta eat. Do not look down on the restaurant entrepreneur. I am so excited for this panel because not only is it tugging at my heartstrings, it's tugging at my stomach too, because we're freaking close to lunch, but all of these guys have ties to San Francisco State University. They have been students here. They have been philanthropists. They are teachers here. So let me go ahead and welcome the panel that we have today. Liz Sebaste will be moderating today. She is Recreation, Parks and Tourism 2010. She's a restaurant consultant and founder of Sobra Mesa. We have Alam El-Kada, economics major, 1994, businessman, philanthropist, serial restaurant entrepreneur, and the President's Medal recipient for San Francisco State University. We have Evan Kadera. Wow, 2 degrees, like undergrad from the College of Business in 2004, and then MBA in 2013, co-founder and owner of Senior Sisig. Love you guys' food. We have Knight Young, chef and owner of Nyum Bai, who is in the nursing program at San Francisco State. And we have Dr. Ryan Smith, one of my colleagues in the Department of Hospitality and Tourism Management in the College of Business. Now I'm gonna go ahead and turn over the conversation of restaurant entrepreneurship, making it work, to Liz Sebaste.
Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here today. This whole panel. We just wanted to chat a little bit of what we're doing and how we got there from school. So for all of you guys, why restaurants? Like, we know that the hours are really long, like the work is really hard, and that the margins are so slim. Like, what made you realize that this was a calling that you wanted to pursue?
I'm going to move to a different room.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm losing connection. Unfortunately, I thought I had good connection in my house.
Okay. Hey, Liz, I'm going to interject real quick. Can you get closer to your mic by any chance?
Baby, stay. I'm going to have to talk.
With headphones. So I can take them off. Hello?
Hello, yes. So we're having a little trouble hearing you through the microphone. I think just to relay and throw out the question here, to repeat while we kind of get the microphone situated. is the restaurant industry is really tough with really long hours and weird days off, right? Like you get Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, and none of your friends are off on those days. How did you end up choosing this industry? Like, why is this something that you ended up moving into? And maybe I'll start off with Evan, since since you have like both an undergrad business degree and an MBA. Like, how'd you end up choosing this?
Yeah, well, I think everybody's story is going to be different, right? I grew up in restaurants, you know, and so my dad, my uncles, they all immigrated from Japan to America, and restaurants were their thing. They either worked at restaurants or opened their own restaurants, and so I was really kind of immersed in that culture growing up. But I really didn't want to do a restaurant. I wanted to kind of pave my own path. I respected what my dad and my family had done. But I also was open to other things. I wanted to do something different. And so, ultimately after high school, I went to SF State and got a business degree with the passion of doing something in business. I always knew I was more business minded than more food, right? I didn't really want to be a chef. I love food. I love to eat. I love to cook, but that's not what I wanted to do for a career. But I did love business, and I was very passionate about all different sectors of business. And so that's why I went to SF State and got the degree, tried to work a full-time job and move my way up in the corporate world. That wasn't working. Very political, slow pace, waiting for people to retire. You can't really control your own destiny. So I knew entrepreneurship was kind of where I wanted to go, but I didn't know if it was food or what. I went to SF State again to get an MBA. And in the first semester of getting that MBA is when I noticed there was this movement starting to happen with food trucks. And this was 08, 09. And, I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I've traveled a lot in my early 20s. And I had seen street food around the world be something that was largely part of the culture, food culture in other big cities around the world. But it wasn't really big in San Francisco. We had a couple taco trucks here and there, maybe Stanley's hot dogs down in downtown, but that's about it. And it really boggled me, like, why? We're a melting pot in San Francisco. We have some of the best restaurants in the world in San Francisco. And why didn't we have a street food culture? And so that's what really started to trigger me, right? I started to see, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here. What's going on? And started to kind of think about food trucks and street food. What could we do? That's really kind of what triggered it. And I was like, you know what, I can get into this. I want to start something. I have to do something to get into the business world and do something that's lower risk. And food trucks did that for me. It was a lower investment than having to build out a restaurant, $500,000 build out at least, and sign a 10-year lease, and you're stuck in it. Where if I bought a $30,000 truck, threw some decals on it, and we could, roll around the city or other areas and just see how it works. And if it doesn't work, we sell it and we're back to square one again, right? It was a low risk for me. And so that's really how I got tied back into it. Like I said, I didn't want to be in this industry, but, I guess my heart and my spirit brought me back.
That's awesome. What about you, Alan?
It's hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on the seminar. I actually, after graduating, I went to work for corporate America. I was doing sales. And what triggered me to have my own business is my sister was getting married in the Middle East. I requested a couple of weeks off to go to the wedding. And my manager came in and he said, you have not met your budget for the year. I was very close, but he said, you haven't met, I can't give you the time off. So at that moment, I decided I want to quit. So this is crazy. I slaved for this company for 2 years. And all what I wanted is just 2 weeks off to see my sister's wedding and come back. And so I decided to leave. So they escorted me out. They paid me the 2 weeks, and it's a very big company. I don't want to mention the name today, but they escorted me out to the parking lot with an officer. Said, I will never work for corporate America again. I want to do my own things. And the working in the restaurant industry while I was a student, it really opened my mind to see the entrepreneurship of the owners of a lot of those places. I worked at Sabella's in Fisherman's Wharf. I worked in waited tables, did all the kind of things a lot of students do. And I enjoyed it, enjoyed the passion of those owners. They're happy. They're doing what they want to do because they're happy. There's no value, there's no price tag on your happiness. And I said, I want to do that. I want to get my own business. It was very difficult because entry job into the food business is not easy. But it's rewarding. It's a really rewarding business, and it's a balance between your well-being and your happiness, and it's a balance between you and your interaction with humans. Yes, you work 10, 12 hours a day, but you're happy those 12 hours a day. You're interacting, you're communicating with your fellow human beings. And that was the beginning of my career, pretty much. And I wanted to say thank you to the company who escorted me out to the parking lot.
What about you, Knight? Did you have a similar story that you switched careers to start working in food?
Yeah, so there's some parallels for sure, but sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. But I never set out to be a chef or a restaurateur. I was kind of a drifter because I did not finish nursing school. I dropped out because I realized at this precise moment when I was checking on a patient during my internship, I knew it wasn't for me. And the next day, I actually booked a flight to go to Cambodia, which is where my family's from. Not knowing why, but I just had this deep desire to go to Cambodia, maybe to learn more about my family's history, to learn more about my parents. And so a week later, I ended up in Cambodia, and this was at least 6-7 years ago. And it was my first time in Cambodia, even though I was born in the refugee camp in Thailand, but it felt so familiar, like Cambodia was home to me. But I fell in love with the culture. I discovered the food even more. I grew up with Cambodian food, but then I learned about the different types of cuisine in Cambodia. And I'm like, wow, this is just so amazing. And the following year, I went back because I became this drifter. Like, what am I going to do? I went to school for like graphic design in the community college when I came back. So I just kind of connected the dots, like several trips back to Cambodia. I think it was like the 5th trip to Cambodia at a noodle stall in the capital in Phnom Penh. I had this epiphany, and it was so vivid and clear. Every time I talk about it, it still gives me chills and goosebumps because I came to this realization that, Cambodian food was so underrepresented, but two, I wanted to bring the Cambodian hospitality cuisine, its rich culture back to the Bay Area, because like Evan, he realized, the street food scene are kind of lacking, but, there's probably one Cambodian restaurant out of the Bay Area. And so I thought to myself, I have to start a Cambodian restaurant, and without any business experience or I didn't go to culinary school or anything like that. It was just my passion and my drive to share Cambodian culture and to bring Cambodian cuisine to the forefront that made me just push harder and harder, even though I didn't have the experience.
Great. Brian, did you always know you wanted to be in food and beverage since you've been teaching there for so long?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's something that I guess in the reverse to everyone else, it's something that I started with, and something that I loved from the beginning, and just kind of the energy and the culture of it, and kind of deciding in my undergrad I wanted to go to hospitality, and kind of working throughout all different facets of restaurant. I've worked in a corporate line cook in a Westin hotel when I was in college. Managed restaurants, high-end to fast food. And it's just something that I really, really loved from the beginning. So I guess when I decided to leave and do my master's to kind of figure out really where I wanted to focus, because I was kind of all over the place in hospitality, but still in food and beverage. I'd been in private clubs, I'd been in ski resorts, I'd been in restaurants, kind of the spectrum. So I just decided that I wanted to kind of really figure out where I wanted to go. And when I was doing my master's, I was offered kind of a teaching assistantship, and I ended up kind of teaching students the basics of cooking. And I kind of really loved it. And I did it as an experiment. I decided, let me see if I like it. I'll go to, I got a job in Hong Kong for a year. And I thought, I'll go for that and figure out if I really like teaching. I ended up loving it, staying there, doing my doctorate, teaching there for 6 years, and then finally coming here. So yeah, I guess food and beverage has been a passion of mine since the beginning, and I never fade away, which is kind of a rare case in this world. And my wife's parents are like, you're just a different culture, because everyone changes paths. But amazing. I guess I just never did.
And since most of you had to change careers to move into following your dreams and starting these restaurants or food and beverage operations, do you think that's the biggest risk that you took into starting your own business? Or what would you say was the biggest leap of faith for that? Alam?
Yes. I actually, entrepreneurship is something that you're born with, honestly, and you learn throughout your classes that you take at SF State or any colleges. All of it is interconnected. Since I was growing up, and my family, my father was also in the shoe business, I just liked the idea of having his own business and so forth. But San Francisco State itself, when you are in those classrooms and you meet all kinds of, from just about every background, students from every background, working class students and so forth, and the conversation in the classroom, I took some econ with Professor Marr, and it's labor economics. And people talked about labor economics and the different theories of wage compensation theory they talked about. And it was really a great conversation. The same thing with the Econ 101, micros with Dr. Osman at SF State, talking about supply and demand and price elasticity. And these things are creating some kind of, creating a thrust for growth personally, and looking at opportunities and seeing the risk is definitely there, but it's not a huge risk. It's an easier entry in a way. If you look at other industries, you're not really creating a manufacturer, you're renting, and you're putting your of course things have changed now, especially with the theme restaurants, and there's more money into the food business, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I said, you know what, I'll take a chance. And I am, a believer that if it doesn't work today, it will work tomorrow. If you fail today, you're only going to learn a few things. People who became president in this country, they failed so many times, and yet they made it to the top tickets. And I said, my risk is going to be really a small risk in comparison to many people around the world. And many of the students that I had in my classrooms who actually left countries to come in and study and do things. So it was something that I really believe that, even failure is going to make me better for the next entrepreneurial that I want to do. So it was a decision that I decided early on, honestly.
It's a great perspective. Evan, do you remember things from class that you actually is very helpful for you today, or what are other things that you wish that the next generations would learn at school in order to help them start their own businesses? Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry. I think somebody's trying to unmute me and I'm trying to unmute myself. Sorry, but that's a rookie mistake there. Yeah, no, there's tons of things through, education especially at SF State through my undergrad and graduate, that I've taken and applied them, not just to business, but to my everyday life, So, I take those things, and, experience is another part of it. So like, once you start to learn a lot more and kind of grow those nuggets that they gave you in school. But I mean, for me, there was tons of great stuff. You can't learn everything in school, though. You have to kind of get into the field and learn it. And so there's 1,000 things I could say that, and we can go on and on about certain things, but I really feel like the one thing that goes back to is kind of just staying true to your roots and not forgetting why you made that decision to get into this industry, right? Too often can we get too focused on growth and money and bottom line, and stress out off of that, and then you're not, to Alam's point, having fun anymore. And this restaurant industry really is about having fun at its core, being creative. And so, for me, it's always reminding myself to stay humble, no matter how big or successful we may become and people may perceive us as, and just really not forgetting why we got started here in this industry to get in the first place. And aside from that, I think it's just making sure that you create balance, right, within your life, making sure you make time for your family and your friends and yourself, right? Get sleep and protect your mental wellness and physical, but first mental. But so just find balance within it, because it can be a tornado where you get wrapped up in it, and you are spending not just 12 hours, but 18 hours start to finish, and you're neglecting everything else in your life, and then you're not having fun again. And so you got to just don't forget why you're doing this.
Really important. Knight, I know you got a lot of your education or your skills as well from La Cocina program. Is there also something that you wish for the next generations to know that they could have learned?
I mean, I went into this industry very naive. I didn't know how rough or tough the industry was, the long hours, this crazy lifestyle that you get into, crazy as in the sense of long hours, the work-life balance is just out of place. When I got into La Cocina, that was just kind of a confirmation for me that, this is what I'm meant to do, in the sense, because, the community of La Cocina believed in my dream so much, and, I guess my take on this is, if you have, a passion or desire to start your own business or this dream, I think it's totally possible, because I come from a background where, everyone, dropped out of like high school or didn't really pursue their dream. And so, my passion of sharing Cambodian food was just, deep, and I could not get rid of it. So I went forward and pursued my dream. So don't give up.
And I guess this is for all of you guys, but I know with COVID, things have like completely changed, and we had to adapt in so many ways. What is the most impactful thing that have happened through this pandemic that you had to pivot or adapt on your business? Evan, do you want to start?
I'll tell you, this has been it's kind of an opportunity. I really looked at it as an opportunity. Despite the financial losses that we had in our business, I did a lot of research while I'm actually unemployed. I have done this is very unexpected. It's not only affected my industry, it affected almost everyone. But you want to look at it and says, well, how can I make things better for the next time that things happen? Luckily, from taking some of the finance courses at SF State, taking some of the courses, I was able to actually do some investment on the side beside the businesses that I was, I'm in the food business. Always had a little bit of and some of the influence of those great professors, and during those hours that I visited, and it's like, Alam, you gotta think of plan B, and you're gonna do this and that, and so I always have put aside few months worth of rents on the side in a saving, invested in real estate, invested in stocks. I did an interesting portfolio, and it helped out. But of course, your lifestyle will change. But what I looked at the opportunities is how I can improve the business with this big disruptions in our industry. How can I make it better so it will not be impacting me as much? How can I narrow my menus that will be easier to deal with when there's a disruption in the future? How can I look at the market and see what's seasonal in terms of produce or anything that can be bought locally, so you don't get disruptions in something happens, a hurricane in Mexico or something like the avocado prices, for example, is over the time that we've seen an increase in those, and you have to adjust that on your menu because it doesn't make sense to keep the avocado, for example, when it's a $5 a piece avocado. So the same thing with the pandemic. You just wanted to see how I can do it better next time, how I can improve and invest in technologies. How can I invest in getting some machineries that are actually can help me be more efficient? How can I schedule my employees in the futures to be more efficient? How can I be more profitable next time? So there's a lot of I took it as an opportunity to reevaluate where we're at, where we've been. Looking at third party and a lot of success, a lot of business. By the way, consumption is not going away. Consumption will continue to be around us. It's just the change of habits. How can we make our operation less dependent only on just people that were around? How can we do a third-party sales and delivery? We never invested in that. We never done that before. So it's been really a great experience spending also the time with my family and knowing that things will come back. I always thought things will come back.
Ryan, from a curriculum perspective, like how does the pandemic change what you guys want to teach about food and beverage?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think the whole platform of the traditional restaurant, and kind of from a standpoint of, we teach kind of the basics of restaurant operations and the basics of restaurant operations in terms of service standpoint. But I think, in the future, we have to look at kind of what are those other operations? What can we do outside of just the traditional food service? Like, can we do the quick grab and go option? Can we do a gathering in the quad in San Francisco State? Can we do these other things to kind of see how the changes affect what business comes in, what visitors we see, what price points we can hit? So I think it's going to change a lot. Instead of just going back, everyone says change is the new normal, but I think we have to change and adapt our new teaching perspective, because the food and beverage industry and a lot of industries, as Alum talked about, are changed forever. But at the end, consumption will not go away. So it's just, how do we show students how people consume foods in different formats?
Yeah, looking outside the four walls and seeing how to diversify, I guess. Sybil, will you help me with this Q&A side? Like, how do we?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a question in the queue from Babak. There's a very common notion that the profit margin is very small in the restaurant business. And I've heard it from chef instructors in the Bay Area as well. So how do you really make a restaurant business that makes huge profit? And I'll open this up to the entire panel, including you, because Liz, you have opened up a number of restaurants as kind of a troubleshooter and consultant there too. So
I'll start off there. First of all, if you're thinking about huge profits to start off with, then just stop looking at the restaurant industry, because that's not what your motive. You're going to fail. I'm just going to say it, because if that's your motive and that's your passion and that's your goal, then this is not the industry for you. It's going to break you down and you're going to give up pretty quickly. I've seen it happen too many times, right? You can make huge profits, but that cannot be your number one goal. You know, I mean, and then it comes down to really being prepared. Like, you know, for us, we got into this just looking at the food. What are we passionate about? What are we going to sell? We want to do sisig, right? We didn't think about which protein was going to, you know, give us the biggest margin. So if you're going to look into it, I mean, there's different foods that are going to get your COGS down lower and give you bigger margins than other types of food. So if you want to look at it from that perspective before you go into it, definitely start to kind of run what your COGS is going to look like for the proteins that might be your biggest sellers. For us, it's pork. It's not chicken, and chicken is a lot cheaper than our pork. And we lose a lot of yield when we cook it. So, you know, looking back, we're like, oh wow, we chose pork, you know. And so, you know, if you want to do that before you get started, then you know, that's something you could do. But again, don't go into it money hungry.
Yeah, I agree with Evan. Like, you have to love it, because it is really hard to make money, especially if you only have one restaurant. Like, usually you need to have more than one in order to start seeing like actual money. But if it's actually what you love, like, you will love to be there, and you will have a really great time. But you will make enough money. But I've never seen one restaurant making tons of money, like a huge profit, like the question was saying.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's definitely, you know, I follow on what both of you have said. But if you strategize really on looking at who is it in it with me as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you know, you have a fixed cost on your rent, you have a fixed cost, you know, on your insurance and taxes and everything else. You have a variable cost on your food cost, and being efficient on that. And labor cost, you're also you're pretty much is fixed. Government interference with which is a huge impact on a lot of the industry, localities, and the requirements on the insurance and so forth, on health insurance. So these are issues that are facing us. But I found out that if you really work with the suppliers, if you go direct, which is an area where I was able to do, is going directly to the producer rather than going to the middleman, Cisco or other food, and say, look, we're using that much a year. We're willing to work with you on getting all of our products, all of our chicken, for example, from your company. Instead of going to the delivery person, just going back to the poultry business and going back to those people. I found it to be helping us saving, and our margin is better because of that. To begin with, a lot of restaurants work on 3 to 5% margin, really. And that is, at the end of the day, that's a really low margin. But it could be, if you really able to use consultant like you, Liz, and figuring out how I can improve the menu. How can I not have waste on my food at the end of the day? So it could be really profitable. And the next shop you're opening, even though you might not make money on it, but you're actually getting the purchase power, the power to go back to the supplier and says, look, I got a second store. Our needs are more now, and I want a better pricing. I want a fixed pricing. I don't want these variables in the middle of the week coming in with $40 more a case on the chicken or on the beef. Can we work together on this? Their success, and if we understand this, our success is also somebody else's success in the industry. You will find that you actually can save quite a bit, and without cutting corners on your customer service and your labor costs and engaging with social media and so forth. The other area I thought would be creating loyal customer base who can actually come in and use you for their dinner, or grab something from you for a catering service, that business that came in without you're already projecting the sales, but this is a new area that for sales, you're already paying your rent. So figuring out what other areas I can improve and be more efficient, and looking at other successful entrepreneurs, because somebody has actually done the research and paid big money for it, those big boys. Why can't we use some of their techniques that they created? And for example, the app for scheduling, it's affordable now. It wasn't affordable. It was only the big boys are using it, but that also makes you efficient and more profitable. So I do agree in the sentiment that it's not a lot of profit in the business, but we can make it work with our hardship, with our work. I mean, with our hard work, and as well as the entrepreneurship that we have over the years.
And I wanted to give Knight a chance to address this also. Knight?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone who wants to, open a restaurant, but like everyone said, this is driven by passion, really, because it's such a hard industry to make it. So that being said, the reward is happiness, you are happy at the end of the day because it's what you want to do. But, learning from my mistakes in the past couple of years, it's true, efficiency, will bring you a slightly more, bigger profit. Food costs, getting to know your purveyors, building relationships are things that I value very much, especially in this past year during the pandemic. The value of community and establishing relationships. With that alone, you can create better pricings, or you're able to even with customers, they become part of their community as well, where they are not just your customers, but they become loyal. You get to know them as families. So I think that is a great way, really, to I guess increase the profit. But yet again, I didn't pay myself the first year of business because I didn't really mind. It's what I wanted to do.
Great. And also from the queue, this is from Gwen N. What are repurposed uses of bankrupt closed restaurants from COVID? What are trends of ghost kitchens, modern food courts versus mobile food truck vans? So maybe I'll start this off by throwing this to Evan, obviously, with the food truck in the background, with the fleet of food trucks, to start off with.
That's a lot. That's a lot right there. So are they asking what are the opportunities in kind of second gen restaurants, food trucks, and cloud kitchens?
Yeah, I think it's kind of building on, hey, COVID has messed everything up. The storefronts that used to be the normal is not the normal anymore. How are you guys gonna make do?
Okay, I mean, I'll try to keep it short and touch on all three a little bit. I mean, like as far as second gen restaurants, meaning restaurants that were already kind of built out, for us, we see that as an opportunity where we don't have to build out restaurants, and there's going to be restaurants available in desirable neighborhoods that maybe weren't before at a lower rate, right? And so we're lucky. We built a brand over the past 10 years, and we're actually, as part of our pivot through COVID, saw that the food trucks downtown aren't there anymore. The business isn't there anymore. So now we're looking for those second gen type restaurants that we can come in and have save on a build out. And then we're also being able to strike really short-term deals with options. So like 2-year leases, with TI, which is tenant improvements. And then if it works, then we'll sign a longer lease, and we have that option in that first ride already. And if it doesn't, then we'll just keep it moving and figure it out. So we have a lot of flexibility right now. With cloud kitchens, we're doing stuff in cloud kitchens in different neighborhoods, being able to extend our brand and our branches, right? And those are kind of month-to-month leases as well. So you don't really have commitments to those communities. So without having to do a big build out. So you can do a lot of test marketing, like for your brand. Like, so I'll put one in San Jose. Let's see how that does compared to putting one in Walnut Creek. And then you can kind of compare the two sales. And if you're going to make a bigger investment, you kind of know where to go, right? And lastly, food trucks. For us, we had 6 food trucks. And so it was really hard to take 6 food trucks of business that we lost downtown and find new locations to put them. So for us, it's been more of a kind of, we've been selling food trucks. But we've seen that the demand for food trucks, we're selling them easily because people want a food truck as an extension of their business. So if you have a restaurant, you're stuck there, you really can't do much. But now I have this restaurant that has a brand. Let me extend my capabilities with the food truck as well. So a restaurant and one food truck is very attractive to a lot of business owners.
And then maybe Liz, since you help like restaurants start, right? So you're probably seeing a lot of odd shifts with what Evan's calling like kind of version 2.0 of the restaurant. Second.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly what people are gonna do with the actual spaces. I think what I've seen a lot of people in the industry take away from this pandemic is to again see outside of those four walls, right? Like just limiting all of your revenue to be on what you make at the restaurant is really hard. It's very limited. Like you can only do a certain seatings, you can only be open for a certain amount of hours. Is looking outside of that. Like so many people we've seen that now they have pantry items that they sell, like little grocery stores as well. They're doing more delivery or takeout. They're doing online classes. Like we need to strengthen our brands and be able to provide like the experiences that people want to from us, but outside of just like the physical restaurant.
Great. So also from the question queue, what do you believe is the single biggest challenge facing the restaurant business at the moment? So let's push this to Knight, because you have a full service restaurant.
Oh, biggest challenge right now. I think it's just starting all over. We were closed, a month here and there during the pandemic, and just getting people out again to eat out. I mean, people are excited to eat out again, but I feel like since I've been open this past couple of months, it's strange how things haven't been really picked up the way that I thought it would. So I think it's a matter of trying to engage with customers again so they can feel comfortable eating out. So I think for me, the biggest challenge is really engaging with customers, having them come out and eat again, just keeping things interesting, because I think it's such a huge, competitive market where there's a lot of restaurants people can choose to. How do you make yourself stand out? How do you keep your customers? That seems to be the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, and Ryan, since you have to teach this in the long term, like what are you forecasting for the students? What are you trying to prepare them for?
I guess I'm just trying to prepare them for kind of just change, like just being open to new ideas, creating revenue in different aspects. And I think Alam we talked about before pandemic, kind of like menu engineering and looking at how to lower costs and what dishes sell and don't sell. But even from that standpoint, what can go to, as a to-go item and what doesn't go as a to-go item? What can hold, what can we make big and make it as a catering dish and kind of, megafy our menu essentially to sell versus things that we can't, and kind of looking at tailoring it that way, I guess.
Great. And I want to throw the next question from the queue to Alam. This is from Arnold Pablo. None of you mentioned financing as a problem. Is it more of a desire to go into business regardless of the first money problem in terms of startup resource and capital? So I know that you started your first food and beverage venture, out of a job that you walked out of.
I think financing is always an issue with the restaurant business because of the failure rates. There's a lot of failures in restaurants. But I think our entrepreneurship is the recipe and the breeding ground for success in our business, in our industry. I do believe that having a private money rather than trying to go into the bank and so forth. Because, when you start up, it's, who's trusting? The bank doesn't know you, doesn't know anything about you. I think if you have a rich cousin or uncle, it's a great way to start being nice to them and maybe invite them for a meal at home and show them that you're passionate. Your grandmother, if she have a little bit and work with work with her, it's not as but there is, we mentioned an opportunities about leases now and about locations. You want to try to enter the market with the least amount of money as possible, with a great idea, with a great understanding of where we're going now. So I feel, and I think it is an opportunity now with the pandemic, is to look into places where it's already a build out, where there's already somebody invested and failed. It has to be a small size. By the way, if you are coming into the industry and if you are new into the industry, it's easier to expand rather than to downsize. So if you are to start and you get 1,500 square foot to 2,000 square foot place, it's not a big, it's not a huge investment. It's easy to fill. It's easy to target your audience and to target the group that you want them to be in your business. So financing is definitely an issue. I think the loans that you can get from your family members can really go a long way, and your success is their success. So they probably will be your customers as well because they want to make sure you're successful. But there is a lot of challenges ahead of us too, which is, food safety, nutrition. And I know that we, earlier talked about issues, and also city government. City government is a challenge. So if you really think San Francisco is too much, maybe you should look at a good market in Sonoma County, or look at a market in, East Bay. And I think it's upon us, the responsibility of the people that are already in the business, is to be engaged and making it easier for the next person to come in and lobby and spend money to lobby city officials, municipalities. I know there's national association and so forth, but for the localities, it's been really an obstacles for a lot of the entry to this entrepreneurial business. So I think all of us together with the restaurant owners, we can make an impact. Donate, engage, bring them in, and let them know that you're only making 3% to 5%. Don't add up more on my cost. So that could also help these people that who are wanted to get into and passionate about entering the food business.
Great. Do any of you guys have insight to provide on what you have to do if you're going to have to bootstrap your first location, your first venture into food and beverage? Share secrets, thoughts, maybe? Keeping your money sources tight. Okay, I can respect that. I'm going to take another question from from the chat. This is from Jay. It's actually directed towards Evan, but I'm interested to hear how it goes for the rest of you guys. What are some family values that you learned through your dad's restaurant and through almost 11 years of Senior CSIG that are important to keep when starting/growing a restaurant? How do you keep a team together? So kind of, what fueled your passion in the very beginning and the lessons along the way? What's the most important thing to keep with you and then to keep the team together?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just a sense of pride that I saw my dad have. I mean, he was an immigrant, he came to America and with nothing, worked his ass off, excuse me, but, basically to get enough to start his own restaurant. And he unfortunately passed away a few years after he was able to purchase and start his new restaurant. So it was short lived, but I knew that was his goal. He had bigger goals after that, buy a house and do all that. But for me, it was kind of carrying that torch, for him into this next venture. And that really motivates me. And I have a business partner, Gil, and his family are immigrants from the Philippines as well. They always wanted to open a restaurant. And so they never were able to do so. And so this is kind of the same thing for him, is that he's kind of carrying that torch. And I know my dad's looking down, proud of me, and his parents are super proud of him. So, and then for me and him, that was like a brotherhood. we had to choose very carefully on who you go into business with, but we're like brothers now, and we always have been. And so, and I think that's that spirit that we try to kind of trickle down. We have 60 employees, but we try to make them all feel like they're part of that family.
And Knight, I see your head is nodding the entire time that Evan's talking.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just resonates with me, you know, coming from an immigrant background too. We value determination, you know, kindness towards other, treating everyone with like love and respect, but yeah, with pride, you know. I'm just so happy that I'm able to, you know, have this Cambodian restaurant where my parents can come and have, you know, a Cambodian dinner. Like the last time I saw my dad was really at Nyambai when we first opened up, and I know that, you know, that he was really proud of me, even though he didn't tell me directly. My mom had to call me and, you know, tell me, yeah, I'm really proud of Knight. He's, you know, come such a long way. The team that I have now, I mean, the core team that I have, they've been with me since my pop-up days, 4 or 5 years, and I treat them like family, and I don't view them as any less or better. You know, it's just, we're all family, and that's how I still have them. Mm-hmm.
And Liz, I know that a big part of the consulting work that you do is building teams and building that starting team that's going to, you know, take the operations through its toughest parts. Can you speak a little bit about what you've seen as the most critical pieces to building a good team?
Yeah, I mean, I think having the right people for the right positions is definitely important, and knowing how to like identify that. But once you're open, I think kind of like what Evan and Knight were saying, like people are the biggest asset in this business. So really taking care of your staff is the number one thing for your success, because if your staff are getting paid a livable wage, like they have healthcare, they're happy with what they're doing, they're constantly being motivated, and they're proud of what they're serving. They're the ones that are facing the gas every day. They're the ones being excited about talking about your product. They're doing a good job under different positions just because they want the place to succeed, because they have a connection with it. So I think having people that are really happy to be there and they're very proud to be there as you are is the number one thing. Because even if you as an owner believe in it and your concept and you're proud of it, if the rest of your team is not having the same feeling or doesn't have that sense of ownership, then it's going to be really hard that it's going to go down to like the gas to feel that way.
Okay, and I think to build on your comments, Liz, we have a question from Matthew Dowling. How do you retain employees pre or post pandemic when they can work at any restaurant and someone is always willing to pay them a little bit more? So Liz, I'm going to throw that to you, and then like to Alam.
Yeah, I think it's really, again, having this relationship and engaging with your staff so you know what their next step should be. Just to make an example, like if we hire somebody and they're part of our team, like I want to know what their passions are, right? Like not everybody's there because they want to be a server forever, or because they want to be a host forever, or a line cook forever. So sitting down with them and knowing what, like if they're a line cook, like, okay, what is your end goal? You want to be a sous chef in a year? Okay, what can we do to get you there, right? If you're a server, you're just doing this on the side because you, I don't know, are a DJ at night. Okay, you love music, so why don't you curate a playlist for us every night? So like, it's something that they love, that they're growing with you as well.
You know, I agree with that. I think it's definitely that sense of community or belonging is very important, and aligning your values and with your employee values is very important, and understanding your ethics and so forth, and having those people around that who have the same value, the same ethics that you do, and you have to represent yourself at the highest standards when it comes to engaging with your customers and so forth. Employees will pick up on that as well. Your engagement with customers, and you're being ethical with your representation on the food and the quality and so forth. The other thing is which is very critical, and it's actually one of the most challenging for the restaurant business now too, beside the financing and beside everything else, is retaining employees, because there's a cost associated with training and retraining. And this cost, it's actually, the employees can break or make a business. If you really understand that kind of relationship, then you want to be flexible. You want to be thorough with your hiring, and making sure you got the right people representing you, representing your concept, engaging with your customers, and so forth. Yes, the wage that you really wanted to pay to any of the staff is definitely something that you probably want to look at the other industry and say, well, wait a minute, I probably should do a little bit better. So this way there is also the moral hazard, so people do not want to leave your company. People want to stick around with you because they know they can't make the money somewhere else, the same amount of money. It's not an easy answer. People leave sometimes because they're unhappy. So if you really look at and being open as a restaurant owner, open to the employees' comments, and have your understand their needs and try to work with that. And look, things sometimes somebody want to leave on a Easter Sunday, for example, and you got your restaurant full, and you don't want to lose that employee. It's the same thing what happened to me when I left. Why did I leave that company? I would have probably stuck another 5-10 years in that company. It's just, we're not giving you those 2 weeks off. It's like, wow, that is crazy. So working with people and retaining people is very critical in our industry. Therefore, we must work with the staff to make them better and happier in our industry.
Sounds simple, right? Just treat them well. So, okay, I just got a 3-minute notice, and so I want to throw out the last question from the queue here, which is, and I swear I did not set this one up, but this is from Takashi. Takashi, how much involvement should restaurants have in social issues? So I know we're kind of in an era of cancel culture, and a lot of restaurateurs want to do right by either their communities or their constituencies. And we've all heard of like the conflicts that Chick-fil-A, right? People boycott Chick-fil-A because of the owners' views. It's dangerous already for you guys in your business to accidentally get canceled by somebody because for some reason they don't like the social issue stances that you guys end up taking. How do you tread that line carefully to put forth what you believe in and still not get canceled in today's culture? So maybe I'll start off with Knight and then Evan on this.
Yeah, this is a very difficult, question for me, because I'm going to put it out there. We did get canceled during the Black Lives Movement, where I expressed, support for the Black Lives community, and they said that it was fake. I was a performative ally or something like that, which came to me as a complete shock. But there is definitely a fine line, really, because you want to show support, you want to be involved with the community, and the community is such a big part of Mumbai. And to be called out, I think it was just very unexpected. So it's a very tricky, sensitive subject, for me. Even now with like the anti-Asian hate movement going on, I feel very like I'm so sensitive about posting anything, just because anything you say, anything you do, it could just come back and haunt you, and it's just very nerve-wracking at this moment for me. So that's all I have to say. I'm still recovering from that.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah. Evan, I think you like senior CSIG, like experienced something similar when you guys first started too.
And social issues, I don't know maybe what you're referring to, but I mean, I think for us, I mean, it looks like Takashi almost answered his own question that it is a fine line, right? And each restaurant kind of has their own culture that they built. So some might come from more of a social activism background and they kind of roll that into what their business is, right? For me, you know, it is a very fine line. And so I don't want to be, we're a restaurant, right? But there's times when I feel like we need to speak up and be a part of it. But tonight's point, yeah, I mean, you can say something the wrong way that it gets just, you know, misinterpreted very easily, and now they're calling you names and they're canceling you, right? And that hurts, you know. And you know, where I think, where, you know, in your heart you're coming from a good place, and so it's very it is a very fine line, right? You have to be very sensitive to what you say and how you say it and what you do. And so it's got to be a thought out process, both short term and immediate, and then kind of what is your long term, you know, goal with putting it out there or standing by something.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, I didn't mean to imply anything about, like, you know, the social issue part. I just remembered that, what was it? People were calling you out for like making Filipino food when you're not Filipino and saying,
"Oh,
what you doing?"
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah. Well, excuse me. I mean, it's been called cultural appropriation and all these things, and it's like, you know, I mean, if that's cultural appropriation, then I've always said, like, look, I'm half Japanese, half white. I'm doing it myself with this. My parents did it to me, you know. I mean, so it's like we're doing things. I mean, and I get it. You know, I language, food, culture, it's all very close to people's heart, and it gets emotional. But you know, change and evolvement is part of kind of language and food and art and all that. And so I kind of see it as something that just people need to warm up to. And you have to have that confidence and have that long-term vision, even though people are, you know, telling you you're wrong in this moment. You know, ultimately, you look at somebody like Colin Kaepernick, where he was kneeling and everybody said he was terrible for doing that. But, you know, over time, like, now they realize what he was doing. And so it's a long-term vision you have to have with it as well. But you have to be able to, you know, have that tolerance for what's going to happen in the immediate.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for wrapping it up on a happy note. We've gotten a lot of requests inside the chat to be able to reach out to you guys in some way. If you can just throw in however you want people to get a hold of you, either hashtags, social media, your LinkedIn, or to your contact page on you guys' websites, that would be greatly appreciated. And with that, I want to thank the panel and say, I hope we do more with you guys. You're fantastic. Thank you for being so open and honest and heartfelt with our audience today. I really appreciate it. Okay. And with that, we're going to go to lunch, and we will be back with our next session of In Conversation with Pathwater with Gulshan Kumar. And with that, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Knight.